Good evening, everyone. And I should say good evening or good morning, wherever you are, or good day. Welcome. This is the forum on Jamaica's journey towards a republic. And it's a forum, so we're going to get into discussions, as well as if you have questions, you can put them in the chat and the comments as well. We welcome everything, every comment, every question. It's not too low level or high level questions. We're here to give support as well as answers to quite a number of questions that we can offer answers to as best as we can. Welcome. My name is Dr. Dwayne Dice, and I am the founder and CEO of Education Solutions International, ESI, and I want to welcome everyone. We have on our platform Professor Rosalie Hamilton, Dr. Karen Dunkley, and Mr. Donovan Longmore. And we're going to get into a discussion on this topic that you have on your screen. So welcome everyone, and thank you so much for being here. Your curiosity will bring some level of substance to the conversations that is going around in the Jamaica diaspora. And we have people who are very versed in this area in terms of the discussion that they're having with Jamaica, hanging in the balance, so to speak. And so we're trying, to grapple with the idea of journeying towards a republic. So first things first, for those of us who are joining us, you can drop your questions or comments in the chat, and on YouTube as well as on Zoom, and we will get those answered. All right, so we're going to start off with Professor Rosalie Hamilton, and she is a stalwart, and I call her stalwart because she is in this fight towards making Jamaica a republic and looking at the areas surrounding reformation and so on in terms of constitution. And then we have Dr. Karen Dunkley, and I'm going to introduce her more formally later on. She is a renowned leader in the diaspora and educational leader as well. And then, of course, Mr. Donovan Longmore. So they're coming up later on in the program. And so let me take this time to introduce very briefly Professor Rosalie Hamilton. And she is the founding director of the Institute of Law and Economics in Jamaica. And she's also the co-chair of the Advocates Network. And if you don't know about the Advocates Network, you really need to get to know about that. And we're going to talk about it in a little while. So let me get straight into the program right now. Welcome, Professor Hamilton. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I hope your internet holds out with us.
Hope so.
Okay. Yes. So recently we had an edu talk, and we kind of opened up the airways especially across the globe and in diaspora to look at Jamaica in the sense of journeying towards a republic, and so we want to deepen the conversation on a greater level to get people an awareness of where we ought to be in a few months or a year or 2 years. But we're moving towards something that is wonderful and what many of us have been waiting for a very long time. Jamaica getting rid of some colonial past and moving into a new direction of owning their own land and taking control in terms of leadership. You have been a stalwart in this shared vision of Jamaica. So give us the background of you wanting to invest your time and energy into this. What did you see at first that propelled and compelled you, and your energy to give to this cause?
Well, first, let me start by commending you on this forum and the title, because the title speaks volume. It is a journey, and it's a journey for all of us as we look to a future, a better future for Jamaica. It's not a destination, and so I know there are listeners and many Jamaicans who feel, what is this republic? What will it look like? And there's a lot of anxiety about, we don't know what, it's not going to be any different, and they expect, well, it is a journey, and it's a journey that has had, in the case of Jamaica, at least a 500-year history from, Columbus came and foreigners came and defined a society in their own terms, in their own interests. And I think the conversation today is about how do we, at this point in 2023, create a Jamaica that represents our interests. My commitment to this agenda is a commitment I've made as a child, actually, in trying to just find the real meaning of life. And, I came up with this idea that, we're our brothers and sisters keepers. I later learned about the concept of Ubuntu. I am because you are because I am. And we can't create a Jamaica unless we see ourselves as interconnected as human beings and as Jamaicans. There's no Jamaican-ness without all of us. And so for me, it's about life. It's about how I see life and the journey we all take as human beings in our various spaces across the world. We happen to be Jamaicans, and our concern is about this future. So I am doing what I think is my life's mission, to create a better society, to be part of the creation of a better society, and to make sense of our humanness as human beings.
Yeah. Very, very good opening. Yeah. And, this idea, when I saw you, because I'm a part of the Advocates Network, and I've gotten all of the communication, and I really love the energy. And when I saw what you are doing, and so on, I said, I really need to get on board with this and pull some people with me to generate the energy towards this thing. And I call it this thing, but it is super important, the thing of leadership and owning our own destiny, our own journey. Do you tell us a little bit in terms of the group, the Advocates Network, because you're a co-chair of that network? Yeah.
Yes, we're a group of individuals and organizations all doing various things to better Jamaica. And in the context of this struggle of a journey to a better place, we see ourselves as engaging activities to unearth, to redefine, to grapple with the legacies of the past. And so whether we're tackling child abuse, whether it is gender-based violence, products of intergenerational cycles of violence that we've inherited from a very wicked and violent past, whether it is the weakness in the education system that we've inherited, where only a few of us are able to do very well, whether it is the housing issues and land issues of access to land. 20% of our population are living in squatting communities, and so on. Prisoners' rights, their human rights issues. We grapple with issues having to do with the fact that young people are not able to wear their hair naturally and comfortable in schools. Yeah. And so we grapple with, so there are a range of issues that we're tackling, and we see it as part of that legacy that we have to fix.
Yes.
And we're of the view that, since our independence for 60 years, we've not done enough to make the kinds of changes and transformation of the inherited structure so that we can be on a better footing today. And I think that's the challenge for the Republic.
Yeah, so I know the time is going. I want to squeeze in a few questions because you're going to set up our next part, the segment with the other part of the discussion. So let me ask you, because you're a columnist for the Jamaica Gleaner. And so you write consistently about this topic and owning our own destiny or journey and so on. And you talk specifically about certain measures that we need to put in place as a nation. How is the communication with the citizenry of Jamaica? When you write, what do you hear out there on the street? Not for the people who are actually reading every single day. How is the communication? How is the education of these principles leading to people understanding that we need to push forward towards a republic? Are they logging on to what you're communicating in writing?
Well, I can say that I always get very positive feedback from my articles, and therefore I keep writing. I'm not a regular columnist, but I write. And that the communication is mixed in terms of what is being communicated, the scale and extent of that. We were very disappointed as a network when the minister announced after 5 meetings of the Constitution Reform Committee that decisions on consensus was forged. In the absence of any, schedule, framework for engaging the public. And so we launched our campaign on April 1st. And we decided that we need to encourage Jamaicans to just start to talk, just have a conversation wherever, friends, family, just begin to have a conversation. And through that conversation, you begin to learn because you know what you don't know, and you also know what others know and don't know, and so on. And so we've started that, and it's just a beginning. It's a process. Since we launched, the Jamaica Council of Churches have agreed to collaborate with us. We have a meeting with them this week. We're going to collaborate again with them on Saturday. So we're going to have a big gathering that's right up at the Theological Center, St. Michael's College, just opposite the hospital, UWI Hospital. So we are going to be talking to people face to face and online. So we're using all media, we're using social media, and we're using whatever mechanisms we can to say to Jamaicans, you must get involved. We have a citizen participation campaign. We think that's important, not only to have a voice in sharing, in having a say in the Constitution, which we're now trying to create, to change and reform and fix up, but importantly, in shaping the Republic. Because if the Republic we want, because some people may be comfortable with just moving the king, we said, our view is that that's not enough. We must move the king. We must end that old colonial arrangement, but we must go beyond that. And to go beyond that, we can define that very summarily as creating a republic where the people of Jamaica are sovereign. Now, what exactly does that mean? Well, we have to work that out. We certainly know that we want better opportunity for Jamaicans to have a voice. And that includes Jamaicans in the diaspora. And that has been the call for decades. We want to have a say, but Jamaicans in Jamaica also want to have a say. So we have to collaborate so that the voices, there are institutional mechanisms set up. We want to have regular hearings. So formal submissions where you write a submission and get your signatures and so on. Those are institutionalized mechanisms. We should not be shouting and the loudest voice get heard. It's not the way we ought to do this. And so we want organized participatory processes. We're looking for participatory budgeting arrangements. All of these kinds of things will take time, but we have to start the conversation. And it is imperative that all of us get involved in some way, shape, or form. And we begin to understand and experience what it means to chart our own destiny, to define our own future, and to create a Jamaica that we all want.
Yeah, good. It sounds very inspiring, and somebody might say this is very inspiring, but the common people, just give us a few words. How can they become involved? That it's not over their head, that they practically can become a part of the conversation. Where can they go to? How can they become?
Well, I would say, social media is a great place to start. There's a lot of information being shared. ask the questions, get involved. When you actively try to get involved, you begin to understand the challenges that we have. The absence of the processes and the challenges that we face. And we have to be confident and bold enough to feel that we can fix it.
Yeah.
And so
let me ask you.
That's what we say to
Yeah.
Jamaicans, just jump in, start. What you're doing here is excellent. This is what needs to be done. Everybody just needs to do something. Create your own chat group, WhatsApp group, online engagement, whatever, and get involved. But that over time, we'll work through the formal mechanisms so that all our voices can be heard.
Wait, I want
Unfortunately, I want to say that I do have to leave because we have forged this amazing global link with all 12 countries that have the king as head of state. And we have a joint statement saying to our head of state, King Charles, that, we want apology, we want reparations, and we want the repatriation of remains and artifacts that sit in England. So that's our call. And I have to run, unfortunately.
Not a problem. Before you go on, to just say it in your presence, we're going to have sessions here once every month on EduTalk on our channel, EduTalk, to make sure that we keep the conversation going and get people involved. Professor Hamilton, thank you so much. And we're going to continue the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. And enjoy the meeting. All right. So that all right, everyone, good. Yes, that was Professor Hamilton. Now we're going to bring in the stalwarts from the diaspora. We have with us, I'm going to give a brief introduction here before our wonderful stalwarts here from the diaspora comes on. Dr. Karen Dunkley, and very briefly, her resume is very, very long. I can't go through it. It would have taken us quite a lot of time here to put her on. Dr. Dunkley is the former Global Jamaica Diaspora Council Northeast USA representative. She's also a public intellectual. She's an educational leader, and she's also an international educator. And she joined us, and trust me, the work that she has done and is still doing is beyond remarkable. If everyone could take a page, just a tiny bit of a page out of her book, then we can support the diaspora as well as Jamaica and the Caribbean as a lot. We can give back a lot to our people. And then we have also Mr. Donovan Longmore, and he is the CEO. I interviewed him on EduTalk. Very, very remarkable human being and a person who constantly thinking about Jamaica. He's the CEO of Reggae University. That's Reggae University. And he's also the co-state chair of Connecticut Jamaica Diaspora Northeast USA think tank. And so I want to welcome both of them. Again, his resume is very, very long, and so I try hard to keep it very brief so that we have time. We didn't get to ask the question to Professor Hamilton, but when we see her in the near future with subsequent forums, then we'll ask some more questions. So we do have time. We have time. Next month we'll have her on early in June, but she's very busy now doing her own thing. So anyway, welcome, Dr. Hamilton. So Dr. Dunkley, it is so good to have you on, and Mr. Longmore, welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dice. We're excited to be here, and let me congratulate you on this extremely critical forum.
Yeah, thank you so much. I want you to just talk a little bit and then of course we'll go to Donovan. Just Dr. Dunkley, talk a little bit about you and the work you have done in the diaspora as the former representative for Jamaica Global Diaspora representative.
Thank you so much. And again, Dr. Dice, as you could imagine, it is really very memorable being here with you, and certainly with Mr. Donovan Longmore, who served as the state lead in Connecticut during my tenure, and you worked so diligently as an active and strategic member of our education sector. So in terms of the work of the diaspora, it continues around national development issues. This is particularly exciting for me because it's peculiar that we're having a conversation about constitutional reform. And we're at this tipping point as we think about how we deepen diaspora engagement, how the diaspora supports, advances, and engages with Jamaica as partners for national development, that the transition to republic, this journey. And as Professor Hamilton indicated, the title is so profound of this forum because it is a journey. And even after 50 years in, we see that America is how many hundreds of years into her democracy, and still the democracy continues to unfold. So in like fashion, we will build well, we will do the due diligence. So the work at the moment has to be deepening the engagement around these issues. Now, here's what we do know, Dr. Dice and Mr. Longmore, and to all of our listeners, and I see some good friends who have joined us here on the Zoom. And let me recognize our current diaspora rep, Miss Michelle Tolini, and I think I saw her. And congratulations to you, Michelle. You've been in for a while now, but I always take the time to acknowledge those before and those who are after. So really good to see Michelle and everyone else here. Let me say this, what has to happen, Dr. Dyson? I had the opportunity to attend a forum that was hosted by the Constitutional Reform Commission in Jamaica. I attended virtually, one of its kind in Montego Bay. And the conversation for me is the same, and Professor Hamilton indicated that the consultations with the people must happen. And I remember sharing that even the little picnic in primary school in Jamaica, at some point, especially as an educator, must be engaged in this process. It's going to fundamentally change the way in which we as Jamaican citizens interact with our country and we interact with each other. So this is exciting.
Yes.
However, we cannot overemphasize the need for consultations in real deep ways where we're able to capture the information from all of the Jamaican citizens, capture the information from the diaspora, the thinking about how to inform each of the issues on the table so that we can build it strong and we can have a solid foundation at the beginning.
Yes, very good. Very good opening, Dr. Dunkley. And we're going to come back to a lot of those points. Donovan, let people know who you are. You're not just the CEO of Reggae.University.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Dunkley, and to Dr. Hamilton, and to all the listeners. Again, my name is Donovan Longmore. I am the co-state chair for Connecticut in the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council, and worked under Dr. Karen Dunkley. And I must say this, we have been at the elite table when it comes to Jamaica. The Northeast have stepped up so much where we want to make changes in our educational system, healthcare system, even our security forces in Jamaica. And of course, in order for this new reform to work, I will say this loud and proud, the diaspora have to be at the table. Never will it work without us. And you see brilliant minds that are here that will go down to Jamaica and be on foot all over the place to put into implementation of what we want to see done. We try to help young men, young women, because they are our future. We have to build them. And one of the things in order to make this work is that we, the people, the citizens of Jamaica, this right here, the mindset have to change. That's one of the biggest problems we're going to face. But nonetheless, we have brilliant minds and intelligent individuals who can make this happen. We look at Barbados. They had a plan.
Yeah.
And look how it worked. Educational system, perfect. Healthcare system. We might have to piggyback off of some of that they're doing and try to make our efforts make it worthwhile for us. It's not going to happen overnight because we understand and see what it is. And like Dr. Hamilton said, we're all peas in a pot. We're out of many, we're one. And we have to come together collectively to work to make this happen. We have to improve, export. Too much stuff coming into Jamaica and going back empty-handed. What are we, slaves? No, those days are gone past us. We're more than that. We're intelligent individuals who want to see things change. We have to get more spiritual growth, economic growth, educational growth, and health and agricultural growth. We need to spur our economy. We can't just sit back and say, okay, it's all about the diaspora giving back remittances. No, that cannot build a country. It helps, But at the same time, when you give money back, Dr. Dice, where does it go? Either an individual or to a family. And what do? They spend it on things that probably aren't even necessary. We have to learn to build that economic infrastructure for Jamaica. And if this is going to work, this is what we have to do. Government and diasporans have to get involved and be engaged, where we can come to the table and say, listen, this is what we really want to be if we want to be free. There's a word that I always tell people. There's a difference between freedom and freedom. There's two words. Freedom, you're free and have dominion over what you do, and freedumb, free but dumb at what you're doing. So we have to understand how this works. There's a difference between the two, and if Jamaica ought to be ahead, we have to get that mindset where we understand what we want to accomplish. This is not something that's going to happen overnight. And remember, we're a borderless country. Any and anything can come into Jamaica, but we have to be careful how we do this thing. And it comes together as one. We need to unite to make it work. So that's what I might take.
Very good. So thank you to both of us. Well, good, excellent opening. So let me ask you, Dr. Donkey, you can go first. When people, I've been trying to get some information around this quite a bit, because the idea is that we're moving towards a republic, and everybody needs to get on board and do whatever they can do and so on. I keep on asking the question, is diaspora at the table of change? Are they at the table in Jamaica of change? Or is it that it's a tough what do you call it, call to be at the table? Because I don't see at the pivotal point where a diaspora member or representative is at the table to create that momentum. And if we become involved, it seems as if we're constantly becoming an outsider trying to push our way in. What do you have to say to that when somebody say there's no diaspora representative at the table?
I think you raise an interesting point, Dr. Dice. It's a compelling point. It's the question that was asked at the recent town hall. And I just want to reference the Jamaica Observer article, but more importantly, from that article, the commitment from the Constitutional Reform Committee to deepen the engagement with the diaspora, because you are indeed correct. What is the role of diaspora? What does a seat at the table look like? So my question simply was, how do we replicate the consultations in Jamaica in the diaspora? Because they are critical and imperative, and there was a commitment to do that. I think that we also need not to be fragmented, not just a consultation, but to be integrated into the life, into the process itself, the life of the process, the conversations, to capture the data on what each of the different areas of interest should look like that will go to the referendum. For those who may or may not know, just to give a brief context, you can imagine that earlier in April, the government did announce that the first issue on the table would be, the first issue is whether or not Jamaica transitioned to a republic. That is number one. And that the second part is that all other issues would follow afterwards. And so when you ask about us being at the table, we need to, well, first of all, there is a conversation to be had around, I would say, dissecting, decoupling republic and the other constitutional reforms. And so we could see that certainly as strategic, right? However, these are the critical issues that the diaspora we need to think about. What kind of republic government would we like to create? When we talk about a president, what kind of president? Are we simply just removing, at this point, the king of head of state and just transferring the power or the obligations that the king had on this president? So we need to determine the republic. Within that construct, as we talk about republic, we need to think about the rights of our citizens against discrimination and access, right? And this includes the rights of marginalized groups, our indigenous populations in Jamaica. How are we as a country going to, for example, address and include our Rastafarian population? How are we going to deal with the Maroons? How are we going to tackle issues of land rights? and land tenure, and how will we, because we have a colonial construct where the masses of land really is controlled by the very few. And in fact, my mother recants and recalls stories that the reason why so many Black people in Jamaica live up in the mountaintop is that when land distribution came, they gave the more accessible arable land to the former plantation owners or their descendants, while those of us who were African Black slaves were relegated to be up in the mountaintop. So even if you look at the current trends of land distribution and why wealth is so concentrated, it goes back to those patriarchal, colonial, oppressive constructs that came out. I will say some other points briefly because I think, and I know they're important. We have to look at the electoral system. What kind of system would we like for our politicians around term limits, right? How do we now decouple the prime minister? Do we want direct election of our mayors? Do we want direct election of senators? Will the diaspora now get an opportunity to have representation in the Senate? Can diaspora members serve in the parliament? Now we know that only if you are a member of the Commonwealth diaspora attached to the King of England can you serve. If you're Canadian or Australian or out of that monarchy, so to speak. But now, will these rights and privileges now transcend that arrangement where any Jamaican, regardless of where you live, can serve in the parliament? So we have to really get into and have the conversation around the issue of dual citizenship and the rights that we have as members who primarily live overseas.
Yes.
And my three last points is simply this. We now need to clarify the role of the judiciary and the rule of law. As a very young child, I remember being a student at Dunrobin Primary School and writing about us moving away from the Privy Council and whether or not the Caribbean Court of Justice. So we have some people who said, yes, as Mr. Longmore Donovan said, we want freedom, but we still want to stay with the Privy Council. We have to settle those issues. And finally, in order to build momentum around this referendum, we need that engagement. We need people to understand. We need people talking to the people, their language in the late term. We need to use the language, the patois of the people, so they really get to understand what we mean when we say Republica come where move where the king. This is what it means for your elected rep, your member of parliament, your constituency. So I would say, when we say a seat at the table, this is what we're talking about. I just don't want to come on to sit down and to have beautiful words and big words. Let's get to the work. Let's make sure that we build a better Jamaica for all citizens and that we decolonialize Jamaica and that we pull back and pull up our people and get rid of the vestiges of slavery, colonialism, colorism, classism, and all kinds of isms.
Yes, very, very well. You touch on a few points there that we want to go through, including the legislative system that they have in Jamaica, the justice system. Donovan, yes, what's your take on the fact that we don't have somebody at the table from the diaspora?
Well, it's been going on for quite a while, Dr. Dyson, and we've been trying to get a seat at the table for the longest, but here's what the problem comes in as. They want us at the table for suggestions, but we don't want to give suggestions. We want to be a part of the solution. There's a major difference between the two. And if they understand and see, because I mean, look at it over the years, what does Jamaica do? They need help. Who do they run to? The diaspora. So what, is it only money that we have that you can, take advantage of? What about our minds? We need to change the mindset of how they think and how they act. Again, like Dr. Dunkley said, there's so much that needs to be done. And we know it's the beginning stage and we're trying our best to be a republic. But at the same time, if we're not careful, we're going to ruin ourselves because we can't just get up and say, all right, get rid of the Queen, get rid of England, this and that. I mean, look at policies that are in place. As Dr. Dunkley said, we need to see how we can best rectify those and fix them in a way in which we can do it. We need people who are skilled and have great expertise in certain areas and can do things that will help Jamaica on a whole, not just individuals on the upper echelon. We need to help each and every one, from, like Dr. Duncan said, kids in the ghetto, the rural areas where you can't reach. We need to reach them as well. Let's build Jamaica from the bottom all the way up. We already have some things in place that can still work, and we just have to put that forth where we can say, okay, this is what we're going to do. And it takes everyone, all of us as Jamaicans, citizens inside, outside of Jamaica, it doesn't matter, but the diaspora definitely has to be there in order for it to be a success. If we're not there, it's going to fail. Simple.
Yeah, yeah. You know, you mentioned, both of you mentioned information to the people, the populace in Jamaica, in and around Jamaica. How have you heard any conversations about engaging, like Jamaican leaders engaging other people in the Caribbean, other leaders in the Caribbean, to make sure that this is a robust change in the system?
The Constitutional Reform Committee, well, certainly we know that this is another iteration, right? Because we've had several iterations of these committees starting very early. So this is not new. We know that when we accepted the Order of Privy Council in 1962, that many felt that the process was rushed. And so we have established over time several committees in 1991. All right, we had a Constitutional Review Commission, if I recall, and if I'm misspeaking, someone can correct me, that was established by the late Justice James Kerr and the Honorable Lloyd Barnett. And we know that they produced 2 reports, which I have delved into deeply because history can always serve as a great teacher. And those reports came out in 1993 and 1994. And so we understand now that we are here in this dispensation looking at the lessons in aggregate from those prior commissions and constitutional reform committees. So when you ask that question, Dr. Dice, I like to think about these answers in terms of the length and breadth of our country, that we're not one-hit wonders. We're not a just come. This conversation did not start with Dr. Dunkley, and it will not end with me, and it will not end with Dr. Dice. So for us as a community, we need to look at what other countries have done and what we ourselves found through these various consultations. Mm-hmm. What lessons can we learn internationally, and especially from countries who look like us, yes. Right? One of the things we struggle with in Jamaica is corruption. And how do we as a community hold each other accountable? How do we build in transparency and accountability, not just for the little man, but for the big man? And what have other countries done? And how have they implemented what we call public law, public order, public morality, and public health? We have a society that is deeply indisciplined. And honestly, sometimes I find myself, if I am not careful and conscious, easily falling into the indiscipline when you're driving on the road.
Yes.
Right? You know, you'll be obeying the light. It's a boy, if everybody cut the light, if everybody drive off and everybody, then I'm going to join them too, because no, it becomes survival and safety. But this transition is, let's look to those who have done some good work. And then how do we build on it, and how do we take the lessons? The success of this movement, of this process, doesn't sit with any one individual or any one entity. And that is where we as a people need to learn about legacy building and about success, replication, and scaling. We need to look to the past and then apply the past to the present and the future to do the best innovation that we can with the information that we have for such a time as this. And so, and that is really key. And so all those gentlemen, I don't even think they're alive anymore, God rest their souls, and women, but we have had this conversation. So now we need to get to action. Yes. And let me say this, we have some individuals who are still slaves. Them can't vex. Mm-hmm. We still believe that the white man's ice is colder. Mm-hmm. We still believe, I know someone said that when Jamaica became independent, they cried. They cried that the queen was no longer, and they were just genuinely sharing the emotional attachment. But these are learned behaviors. We have become systems and agents of our own oppression. And so we need to, you will still have some people say, boy, I don't want to leave. But what benefit? Jamaicans have to get a visa to travel to England. What benefit? Where is the wealth for Jamaica in the Commonwealth? And
It's
that
actually
is
getting
where I
worse. Yeah, travel is getting worse to England for Jamaicans. So we need to so Donovan, in terms of relationship and looking around the Caribbean for some, as Dr. Dunkley said, then we need to look at other people who look like us and see if we can implement certain strategies to move forward based on our identities. Do we have those people around us that we can look at in terms of leadership development and leadership reform in Jamaica? Do we have those specifically moving towards a republic?
Well, I mean, the thing that we're mostly looking at now, because Barbados did it, right? And everybody jump up, oh, what about Jamaica? We're next, right? And let me say this. Look at every country in the Caribbean. Jamaica is the most impactful. You'll probably even say in the world because of what we can do, not just about our resources, but who we are as a people. Yes, we have the good, the bad, and the ugly, but we as an individual persons in Jamaica can make a difference if we try to make it. So we have so much at our hands, but at times, Dr. Dice, we just take it for granted and say, okay, like Dr. Dunkley said, why, if this one I go teeth light, if this one I go do that, may I go follow it too, because, you know, I have to make it just like he or she does. If we can get rid of that mindset where we say, you know, crab in a barrel mentality and work together, you know, other islands are watching us. You know, they're seeing us because we have been so dominant in sports and music, and, you know, our tourism sector is like at the top right now. So if so many people want to come to Jamaica, why are we not, you know, putting ourselves in the sector where we can say, okay, let's benefit from this? I mean, I was talking to a gentleman from the Virgin Islands the other day, and he heard about this, the new reform, and he was like, how are you guys going to do it without the Queen?
Yeah.
I said to him, let me ask you a serious question. We supposedly gained our independence in 1962, but are we really independent? You know, if you're going to be depending on another country or other royalties to give you what you need, how are you independent? So we now have to face the reality by saying, okay, we're now going forth to be truly independent and truly free, but can we do it as a people? You know, the mindset, like I said, have to change, and others are watching us, because guess what? Once Jamaica becomes this free republic, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 might join right away and say, okay, it's our turn. And they will look to us and say, okay, Jamaica, you know, teach me, let me know what to do, because you're so impactful in the world. I mean, God bless Mia Motley and what she's doing for Barbados. They're excellent and they're surviving and they're doing well on their own. But at the same time, we can do better. We are a more impactful country. We have more resources at our hand, but we just used to make it. We got to decrease the value of the dollar. You see how high it is compared to America and England? That needs to change. Our economic infrastructure needs to change. We need to do more agricultural stuff. We need to get education out there. We need to reform our, you know, hospitals, our healthcare system, all these things. And it will happen over time. And here's the one thing I want to say before I leave. The fact that money is in Jamaica, I know. Don't get me wrong. Maybe it's in the wrong hands, but we need to use those money to help build our country. Everything you see in Jamaica, every time I go to Jamaica, I go to Jamaica like 6 times a year. Every time I go to Jamaica, guess what? The hotel, foreigner own it. The wharf, foreigner own it. The beach, foreigner own it. I'm like, why? What do we own? You know, and if we're really going to be a republic, we have to get back some of those things. And of course, it hurts because it might be too late, because you know, this gentleman over here who owns this, or the Chinese who own that, he or she might want to say, okay, in order for you to buy it back from me, you have to give me trillions of dollars for it. And do we really have that spending power? So these are the things that we need to look at to make sure that we put ourselves in the right driver's seat so we can go forward and drive in the right lane.
Yeah, so we need the right people in the right positions too.
And it's never too late, Mr. Longmore, Dr. Dyson.
Never.
But I do want to give our other Caribbean countries some credit. I know, you know, they said Jamaica and brand is so big and large, but I think we can look to what happened in 2016. I think it was 2016, because we are assuming that everyone carries this excitement, as I shared, and as, you know, Professor Hamilton and you, Dr. Dice and Mr. Longmore, you have also amplified this push towards, you know, true liberation, true freedom, right? This push towards becoming a republic. But we have to look at the lessons. What can we learn? That in 2016, I think, in the Bahamas, the voters rejected proposed constitutional changes. In Grenada, They rejected constitutional changes around fundamental rights, electoral and constituency boundaries, the same kinds of issues that we're talking about now, term limits and fixed election dates. Like
Yes.
those are, that was even a conversation. So to me, information is power, but information is not enough. That is part of it. It's real understanding. You know, Jamaica, when you're growing up, the dread them what I say, boy, I'm all a reason with you. And we have all a reason with not enough people. We have all a reason around a back wall and a reason up a country.
Yes.
We have all a reason in a church and a reason up at the university. We have all a reason at the hair salon and the hairdresser and the doorstep and sit down out at the gate. We have all a reason. And if we don't do this well, when we get to referendum, when we get to the critical question of republic, then none of this matters. And we have to get the people them input. What is a republic? What it means? What kind? And so now, Dr. Dice, we have to call a reason.
Yes, I totally agree. And so you sort of going into this segment. I want to take the question from our viewers. So give me just a short answer to this question, because I look at, and I constantly asking the question, what would it look like in terms of information sharing in the education system? Because we need people to understand about this transition from an educational perspective. What does it look like? What is your responsibility as somebody who's grown up in the education system, being educated in Jamaica? What is the transition for you? Similar to when we were transitioning from customary units of measurement to metric system, and we go through that transition and look at the likes and dislikes and the differences and similarities with the different governmental structure. We need that transition to look just like that so that people start to buy into the process and that it makes sense. But Mike, very, very short, because I want to get to the question of our viewer and the participant. What would the Constitution look like? Are we thinking about a republic like America leaving Britain and starting it with we the people? Or we're going to create our own? What do you think, with your learned minds? What do you think that look like? Very, very briefly. Donovan, you want to start us off with this very, very briefly. So and then Dr. Dunkley, and we get to Sister Clarion here. Okay.
I personally think we're going to start our own, but look at the United States and other countries who are successful. Democracy is something that we all love, and we want to do things where, it improves not only the citizenship of our country, but it improves the overall infrastructure of everything that we do in terms of finance, education, agricultural, I'll keep saying that, export, we need those things, and ownership. We need ownership. You can come to America and you can work hard, 3-4 jobs as Jamaicans, as we do, and other foreigners, and own your own house, own a car, own things that you can say, okay, I'm going to own 3-4 houses, rent them out. This is how we build, and Jamaica can do that. I mean, I know we have the Airbnb and stuff like that, but yes, I think we can start our own. We have the brilliant minds that are there to do it, and we have to teach our young men and women the same way. We have to groom them, because there are too many programs that are out there. I'm on part of several of them. Dr. Dunkley started many of them, and once we get our young people involved, we will have a brighter future.
Dr. Dunkley, what do you think? What would the Constitution?
I absolutely agree with Mr. Longmore. I think that, first of all, we need to determine, when we talk about this new republic, right, what kind of president would we like? Is it going to be a ceremonial president, much like the function of the Governor General that we have now, that really the ceremonial presidency will have limited power? Or would we prefer an executive president that has more extensive power? So, for example, the ceremonial, now we see the Governor General in the role and really representing the monarch, in this case, the king of headed state, of different ceremony, the swearing in of parliament, swearing in the prime minister, etc. Or do we want to grant some extensive powers, some authority to the executive president? For example, do we want this new role to have some influence over the appointment of public official, right? Do we want this president to play a part in the economic policy, into issues such as national security? To what extent are we willing now to say that we have a prime minister and we're going to build a container of responsibilities for the prime minister, and we're now going to implement the president as a check and a balance?
Yes.
And to me, I think that that is what we need to decide. I think that we should choose the latter, that we should be radical in our change, because I'm not prone to sentimentalism. To simply shift the titles based on pomp and circumstance is foolishness. The people them would say foolish.
Yes.
I think we really need to be radical and say, what are some of the checks and balances, the oversight that we can bring to an executive presidency that would make our country stronger? And Dr. Dyson, like a true excellent educator that you are, you ask about how we get the children involved. We teach them, we reach them. We have to do explicit teaching. Children, here's what is happening in the country. These are the questions on the table in child-friendly language. And we would be so surprised at how intelligent and magnificent our young people are that they can actually weigh in. And Dr. Dyson, I would be remiss, because we have such a strong and powerful community. I don't want to start. I don't want you to throw me off and don't invite me back. But I have to. Yes, I just want to quickly acknowledge
Please, yes,
Judy Dyson, as well, who is another illustrious education and who has dropped some nuggets in the chat about civics, because we need that. Miss Caroline Largy, Mr. Michael Campbell, Stafford Grant, and of course, Michelle McKitty Bromley and Claudette McParker, Sharon Smith. Big up to all of them, because these are people who lead the thinking in the diaspora and support the boots on the ground movement. Thank you.
Yeah. We're gonna, I'm glad that you're doing that, because it's very important to acknowledge the people who are doing the work here in the diaspora. So thank you so much, Dr. Dunkley, for acknowledging everybody here, including my dear friend, Michael. Big up yourself, and Michelle, and of course, Miss Largy, Lady Largy, and others too. Sister Karen, can you ask your question or make your comment?
Good evening, everyone. Sister Clarion here, Managing Director of a New Jamaica Peace Foundation. We're working with almost 70 young people in Annette Gardens. I think we need to be careful about how we talk about small people and, having to talk with small people, because there's an assumption that you think Jamaicans don't know what's going on. I hear the sister in the blue mentioning colonialism and the relics of colonialism. And all my life growing up, we are independent. And now, Brother Donovan is saying supposedly independent. So now that we were lied to and told we actually were independent in '62, we're now going to go into another lie. We're going to go even deeper down the rabbit hole, right? Because the truth of the matter is, if Uncle Donovan wanted to bring me some laptops and some books for my student, there's absolutely no reason why they should give him hell at the wharf. There's no reason. And making Jamaica a republic, it's not going to change. And the people out there know it's going to change. You can go and have these wonderful conversations with them and put on a show, and the government can spend all the money and do these town hall meetings and make it look like, yes, man, we meet with the people, and the people them say, yes, go ahead. But we know Jamaicans, Black Jamaicans, will not be able to go on the beaches that we can't go on now. And I think it's done with Duns River. I'm told that there are days when Jamaicans, even if you're paying the money to go into Duns River, you're not going to be welcomed.
Yes, it's true.
Oh my God.
Sister Carol, that is
you don't need to be a republic.
Allow.
Yes, but don't you know that there are beaches Jamaicans can't go? Don't you know that?
Yeah.
That the hotels, and we're the only Caribbean country that does that. So when we talk about other Caribbean countries, there's absolutely no reason. Making Jamaica a republic and pushing around some paper and making a president instead of a prime minister, we know the truth out here. All right? We have the
You're saying that either way you would prefer either to stay as under the Queen or King at this time, or a republic, nothing will change.
I don't believe, my brother, it will be any difference from the trick that was pulled in '62. We're going to Just Paul. I was told we're independent, and everybody grew up thinking independent. And when you get big, you say, but how come we're still saying swear to the Queen and these things, and you start to think about it? But some adults still don't think about it and realize if you go out there, there are some Jamaicans we kill a dead. Yes, we're independent. We're independent. But what I'm saying to you, look at all the governments that have demolished people's houses. I remember years ago seeing a Jamaican woman build up a house, and she said she wrote to this minister and that, and she was crying, and they tore down her house. You don't have to be a republic not to tear down people's house so them spend money and build, you know. It's not a republic going to change those things. You understand? So the truth of the matter is how Black Jamaicans are treated, how Jamaicans like Brother Donovan are treated. There is a difference. We know there's a difference between how the Chinese are treated. They get tax breaks. Are you going to give a tax break to Uncle Donovan to come back and set up a business and make him shipping whatever? Because he was born here, his parents were born here, they pay taxes for how long versus a Chinese man to come over here as an adult and get that opportunity? Are you not going to give that opportunity because we are no republic? The answer is no. He will not get that opportunity when you become a republic. And let me tell you, young people, I was in Anegans one day. I heard a young man say, "Latta just coming, you know, where they make money off of people." I was like, oh my God, the young people eyes are so wide open. So you can sit down there and think, say, you got to teach them something, and them are going to teach you something. The Bible said the last shall be first, and who's at the bottom going to be at the top.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Thank you for sharing. It really bring up, and Dr. Dunkley and Donovan, let's talk about this a little bit, because she brought up a point here that I want to explore from, earlier. We know that even in the Republic, you have crime and violence, that you have to protect people's property and so on. And it's not just with the being a citizen doesn't give you the right to just take over somebody's property and doing whatever with it, because they're citizens too. And if somebody comes in, like what are the measures that you put in place in order for those people to jump through hoops, like what the US have in place for people who are green card holders or so on, and then they become a part of the system, that you can own something and so on. So we look at the measures that are in place. And also, speaking of those measures, have to do with what is written in the Constitution give people rights, and then what Dr. Dunkley mentioned about the justice system, the legislative system in a country in order to govern itself. So that's why I'm talking about the Constitution. What will it look like in terms of the priorities that are set to govern the citizenry of that country? What does it look like for us when people come in from outside to come in to own property, to own businesses? What sort of measures will be in place for them to occupy the space among other citizens? In terms of tax break, yes, and so on and so forth. Because even Americans right now, they might say something opposing the idea of tax break for the rich, but those other people might say those rich people are creating jobs, and if you want to do the same, you could create a business too and get tax break. So on the one hand, yes, you might say, oh, they're evil, they're getting tax break and so on. But on the other hand, you could do the same thing too if you want to, by investing in your own self. So what does it look like in terms of journey? It might not be the final look. I just want to get your opinion on this, as in terms of what Dr. Dunkley says. Let's reason with me with this in terms of the journey towards it, because I know that yes, we have scamming going on in Jamaica, that they're trying to curtail the behavior of certain people with the scamming. But this journey towards the Republic, the transition, and this is where it gets a little cloudy and murky during the transition. And some people might want to say, no, we don't want that. We want to remain where we are because it's too much. It's too much of a danger. What will it look like in terms of a reasoning culture and a reasoning people moving towards law and order and implementing those law and order? Because there are law and order on the books. There are laws and policies on the books in Jamaica that nobody hears about. Nobody implementing those. So what would it look like now in the murkiness, in the confusion, moving towards the Republic?
Going back.
Then, yeah, Donovan, go, and then I think Dr. Dunkley is muted.
Okay.
Go
All
ahead,
right. to get back to what Sister Claren was saying, she does have a point, but me personally, I believe that we as a people can do better. We need to come together and work. The Constitution does need to change. There are certain clauses in there, as you know, Dr. Dice, that we need to look
We
at.
have an order of the Privy Council, Mr. Longmore. We have not a constitution in Jamaica. Here, that
but
was
here
from 1962, and that is the crux of this matter.
yes, and don't forget, our Prime Minister is on that Privy Council.
Oh my goodness.
So as back to Sister Clarion, yes, we need to sit down, like you said, Dr. Dunkley, at a table and work the whole thing out. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take some time. And if we are to be a better place, a better country, these are the things that we have to focus on and see how we together collectively can make a difference and make it implemented into something where we can all say, yes, this will work for our country. You're going to have opposition from certain people, but at the same time, again, majority is going to rule, and you have to see how you put that courses of course together to make and say, okay, I can make this work for me and I can make this work for my community, and then we can also we can make this work for our country. It's all about countries, not about individualism. It's not about people who are in parliament and you have one over that side and one over this side fighting each and every day. We need to come together and learn to see how it's going to build our country for a future, because this is a big step in which we will say, okay, we're moving away from the Queen and everybody else over there, and we're going on our own. And this is not something that's easily done. We have to put great mind thought into it to make sure it works. And if it doesn't, then we're back to failure from square one. So we have to come together as a collective group of people, put our minds together. We have those brilliant people here in the diaspora and in Jamaica that will and can make this work. I mean, many of us work in government, so we understand that we can take pieces of it and put it together to make it work for us.
Yeah. Dr. Dunkel, let me give it a short form of it. Maybe I should ask then, what would the committee look like? What would it look like to represent the writers of the new constitution?
I think that the committee has to, first of all, be inclusive. It's a critical question, right? And that and government, I know with this particular committee, they have received quite a bit of feedback on the membership of the committee. However, the members on the committee are working. And so now what we have an opportunity to do is to refine the process so that it has greater participation from all spectrum, across all spectrum of Jamaican citizens, whether in global diaspora or in Jamaica itself. When you ask about what can and should it look like, those granular conversations about the fundamental Bill of Rights, the treatment of indigenous people, land rights, land tenure, how agencies function. We heard Sister Clarion that, boy, we know that we have such a difficult time just with people trying to do good things and bring things into Jamaica. Benefits that are accrued and given to Jamaican-born citizens versus those who come in strictly for business, and the racism. We don't like to use that word when it comes to Jamaica, but I'm going to use it today. The racism that is present there, that I know and have experienced, not just firsthand, but I'm talking about even people who do not look like us. They call and they say, oh my gosh, Karen, you wouldn't believe how easy it was for me. You can't believe the access I have. Right? Because they feel they themselves are surprised and a little bit uncomfortable with how much access they have being non-Jamaican to Jamaica.
Yeah.
Okay. And so for me, I think that this is a moment in our history to build a process. If we focus on a strong, inclusive, collaborative, and open process, then we will get the best product. The research shows that the best thinking is in the room, and it can come from everywhere. It not come from the body because they have any big doctorate or them a lawyer or a doctor or accountant. None of that matters. What matters is people who have a grasp of the issues, who have their feet on the ground, who are nested in their community, who love God and country first. And then we're going to get the best outcomes around the myriad of issues we have to decide. What kind of a republic? The role of the president. Again, What do we do with our Bill of Rights? How do we ensure access to basic services? What do we do with land tenure? How we treat marginalized group? What is the rights of us as dual citizens and Jamaicans living abroad? How do we distribute resources in a more equitable manner? That is how we get it. And I just want to say something, because I have heard so much and I understand where the despair comes from, that nothing will change. It's the same old. But I want today, from my faith reference, to say that my hope and prayer is that God will do a new thing, that we as Jamaica will do a new thing through this process and use it to repair some of the harm. That is why, if you recall what happened in South Africa, they spoke about reconciliation, that this moment, this process is a moment to reconcile some of the wrongs as we move forward. And we have to believe, because our children are coming. And Sister Claren, we have to believe, because our children are counting on us to deliver on the promise of a better Jamaica.
Yeah.
Mm.
And a lot of people have died for this, a lot. I'm sure our national heroes, the ones from Paul Bogle days, those people whose names we don't even know, some of them, because Paul Bogle wasn't doing this by himself, but we don't know some of their names. Sam Sharp, those would be very, very, very sad, turning around in their graves, if we don't push forward, if we don't try to make a difference.
And Dr. Dice, may I suggest, I would love to see you. I've had 2 individuals such as yourself, other than you, reach out around, well, actually 4, right? There has been, and I'm going to call their names. They should get the credit. Harold Bailey from The Observer. I've sent in quite a lot of feedback about some of the extensive issues, but I would love to see you yourself, Ambassador Curtis Ward and Trevor Smith. Regardless of where people stand on the issues, I'm agnostic to people's beliefs. I just think to expand the platform to have the conversation, regardless of whether or not we agree or disagree with each of those I mentioned. We don't always align, but that's not, the thing is not conversion, it's understanding. The thing is about the reasoning, so that when we get to referendum, we would have done the best effort to get the people involved. And it's everybody. And so it's Michael Campbell's talking in his circle. It's you, Dr. Dice. It's Judy in her circle. It's Carleen Largy. It's Stafford Grant in their circle. It's Sharon Smith. That is what it takes, because we each touch a different circle. Mm-hmm. And we need to think critically. We don't need to say, boy, we're going to throw out the baby with the bathwater. I just want to leave this note. In Mexico, my cousins live in Mexico, and I've been there. You have to, if you live by a beach, people can walk through your house to go to the beach. And they do it all the time. And that is the level at which citizens are protected in Mexico around beach access, that they can walk right through your house. They don't need your permission. And from a certain time to certain time, they can go through your house, go to the beach, and come if you want to build on the beach. So while we balance economic development and environmental rights, when I was a little girl, that's one thing that was our family could do, that it would put us in, because we were not rich, put us in the car and we would go to the beach. We'd just drive down the country, we'd pack our food from a yard and we'd go to the beach. And now I see so many Jamaicans not able. So that's just a small metaphor for the grandness of the work that lays or that we have ahead of us.
Yes, well said. And we're going to wind down here. Dr. Dunkley, you really give us a nice closing, because it projects into the future what we have to discuss and to inform about in the diaspora. Very good. Donovan, thank you so much for being here in this forum.
No problem.
Dr. Dunkley, thank you so much. Viewers, it has been very delighting to be here. I'm very motivated by the discourse, and moving forward, we're going to have another session very near in the near future, so that we can keep the conversation going, as well as getting more people involved. Because if we don't do this, nobody else will. If we don't do this. And that's how we're looking at it. This is our opportunity to make a difference. And Dr. Dunkley, I'm going to take you up on the offer to get other people in the diaspora involved, because I'm thinking that if we do this, then we can, it's not just the information, but the reformation of our people, the mindset that is moving forward. We can get people to change. Even if we disagree on a certain level, we still need the country to be self-governed. And we can curtail a certain level of indiscipline, but we can do something about it.
That's right. That's right, Dr. Dice. And Dr. Dice, imagine if we as a diaspora, we know we're not going to get 100%, but we can say that this list from the diaspora, that these contributions is where the diaspora is standing as non-negotiables. And we understand, and we could say the US diaspora, then the UK can have a similar process. Imagine what that would look and sound like to government, because now they're balancing all of these competing interests and voices. We're not even organized. And even if we don't have to agree on everything, could we have our top 10 and say the majority of diaspora, we're organized and we're standing, whether we short, fat, tall, skinny, black, brown, purple, girl, boy, man, child, we're standing on these issues. And that's the power of community and the power of organization.
Very good, very good. I leave this note with you, and along with what Dr. Dunkley just said, we need to think of self-governance. That's what we need to think of. Every time we want to agree or disagree, think of self-governance. Think of that. All right. We will see you again in the very near future with another of this kind of forum. It's going to be a series. We start off and we're going to make this to the end with some outcomes. So get your crowd, get your crowd ready. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for being on.
Thank you, Dr. Dice. And Dr. Dice, maybe you generate the list, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, started.
Thank you.
Started. And Dr. Dice, before we go, Dr. Dunkley, let's all think of, you mentioned something very important, our national heroes.
Yes.
Let's all think of what Marcus Garvey said.
Yes.
If we don't know where we're coming from, we won't know where we're going. So let's focus, let's come together, as Dr. Dunkley said, and let's build. It can happen. It takes a nation to build what we're doing for. So let's work together as a team. Not everybody's going to agree, but the majority will move forward. So let's participate and do as much as we can to build a better Jamaica. And it will happen.
Yes. Thank you so much, everybody. And thank you for coming on. See you next time. And please remember that we have EduTalk. EduTalk is on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern time. You can tune into that as well. We have some robust conversations going on over there every Tuesday. We will see you again, because we're not giving up this issue. We want to make sure that we make some changes here.
That's right. We can't.
Time is very limited.
Kevin, you're late.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everybody. Love the conversation. Love you all. Walk good. Take care later.
Blessings.
Yeah, blessings.
Great session, Dr. Dice.